Hi, Nick.
Ezra, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Good morning to you, and good morning to all those morning owls out there. Great to see everyone this week, and looking forward to being able to talk through some social updates and some great social media strategy questions. Before getting to the show, Nick, I wanted to give a couple of huge congratulations to you on some amazing accomplishments in this past week. One to you and the social media team for the nominations on those Shorty Awards for both sort of the LinkedIn strategy and as well as the efforts towards our recent rebrand. And we'll get into that in our question of the day today. But also want to congratulate you on the recent shout out in a Wall Street Journal article earlier this week where you got a mention in there. I know some great accolades coming your way there, but I'd love to hear how that felt for you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you so much. The Wall Street Journal one was cool. So one of the things I do as our social listening kind of program manager is I work with our corp comms team, and I do data polls for when reporters come through and ask Hootsuite for social data and like social listening data. So I supplied some data. I built a little bit of a report for this reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and gave some recommendations and some thoughts on like kind of here's what the highlights are about this data, specifically around mentions of cryptocurrency and mentions of gold and like who's buying what. And I found some interesting trends. You'll have to go read the article, but it's on my LinkedIn page. But what I was surprised by, because this usually doesn't happen when I share my data and share a report, is that the reporter included my name and mentioned me, saying this data came from Nick Martin at Hootsuite, which for me that was really cool. I got to share that with my family and be like, look guys, I'm in the Wall Street Journal. So that was fun. I was really excited about that. And then the Shorty Awards, which is the awards that we're nominated for, that was just a cool thing to find out that the team was nominated for that. Obviously, it's not just me; it's a full team. Especially with the rebrand, that was like a full effort across the organization. But it is just so cool to even be nominated, and people can go vote for us, and hopefully we can come out with a win. But it's nice to just be recognized for that, and we'll see what happens. It's been fun to see though. It's been a cool week.
Absolutely. And we'll include the link below after the show here to go and vote, and encourage everyone to be able to do that.
Please.
Diving into the updates of the week here, some very interesting ones taking place all across the different platforms. Starting off with Instagram, they've launched some new link in bio functionality to their platform. Obviously, lots of companies have been in the link in bio space for a while. Companies have been getting creative in terms of those experiences, and now Instagram sort of hopping in there to take advantage of that natively. Love to get your thoughts on sort of these new functionality. Do you think this will affect companies' decisions around sort of their link trees and their link in bio options, or what are your thoughts on this update?
Yeah. Well, I think first off that it's great that Instagram is doing this. They're paying attention to how people are using their tool and being like, maybe we should add a feature there because there is a whole business, built around this specific feature. So they're looking and being like, okay, we see that one link is not enough for how many brands and many accounts are using Instagram. So they've now added in the option to include 5 links, which honestly, I think for many accounts and many businesses, that's probably a good amount. You see the most use cases for something like Link in Bio or Linktree, which are the tools that people use, is you see like news articles. Like I know I follow Golf Digest. I'm a golf guy. They use one that has like hundreds of links to all of the articles that they share out. For them, I don't know if this is going to move the needle. They'll probably still stay with one of the link in bio features, whichever one they use, or link in bio tools. But for most people, I think this is a step in the right direction. I know, many people don't need a million links included, and it's a lot of work to have all of that updated and constantly changing. So having 5 is a really good step, and I think it's going to, I don't know if it's necessarily going to hurt the link in bio tools and like Linktree and things like that, but it's just a new way to help content creators, which I think is great.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important. Like we've just launched our own link in bio solution, Hoop Bio, but being able to have that branding, be able to tell that story as people go through and click on those links makes such a huge difference in terms of that marketing journey and that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be great for companies to to have a little bit more flexibility on the Instagram side. I feel like you're working in some very constrained requirements there. So given more options is always better.
Yeah.
Continuing on here, LinkedIn verification has become a new thing for personal profiles. Personally, I'm very excited about this. I've seen over the past few years some scams related to LinkedIn profiles, some opportunities to be able to have that level of verification. And I think as well too, it creates a more trusted environment when you know you're speaking to users, that they're at the organizations or companies that they're a part of, and they're real people and not bots behind that. Would love to get your thoughts. It seems like all platforms are moving towards this more verification model. Like, how are you feeling about this, Nick?
I'd like to say all platforms are moving towards it, but some platforms like Twitter are starting to kind of change how verification is done. I'm not going to say whether I think it's for the better or for the worse, but LinkedIn, I think this is for the better, because especially for like a networking site, that especially from like a business standpoint, I think it just makes sense to have this option for people. This isn't something that is going to be mandatory for everybody. This is something where you can opt in to prove that you have verified yourself, whether it's through a government ID, through your work email, whatever. I think there's a couple different ways that you can verify yourself. But this just helps people understand who is talking to them, especially if it's like through a cold outreach email, which I know we've all had happen in LinkedIn. I get my messages on LinkedIn, and sometimes they come out a little bit out of nowhere. And for the most part, I don't necessarily trust them. This will help that, and it will help kind of put a halt to scams. It'll help HR teams and people teams identify, bad users, people who are trying to say that they work at Hootsuite. Because right now, for example, someone can just say, "Yep, I work at Hootsuite," but there's no verification to prove that. And this is going to start helping those things along the way. So I think in the long run, it's good, especially because it's not necessarily mandatory. So I see it as a good thing. I'm excited for it, and again, it's just an opt-in option. So the being able to prove who you are is always going to be a good thing in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And social media coming from this so almost anonymous world where anyone can be anything online, I think it's great to be able to see some of these new features coming
Yeah,
to life.
especially with how things are going, where you can create an entire person and character with AI now, and all sorts of automated messages, and who knows what's going to be coming in the future. So being able to again identify, like, yes, I can see who this person is, who they've been, verified with. It's just going to be a good thing to help just ease of mind and understand who the heck I'm talking to.
TikTok, some exciting updates on that front as they look to compete in the search world. I know episode 1, we talked a little bit about some of the trends globally from a social media perspective, moving towards social media being that search engine. TikTok's launched some new featured snippets in their search options. So these will appear as some text at the top of the search, be able to provide some quick answers to questions similar to with what Google's been doing. Curious to get your take here, Nick, as a platform like TikTok moves more into that search world over just being a social network.
I think he just put this topic in here, so I have to say social search again. But I think it's a really interesting move. I think again, similar to how we saw Instagram adding in the link in bio and like adding in a feature that people are already using and like in finding a workaround for. This is TikTok identifying that this is how people are starting to use their tool, TikTok, and they're using it for social media search. Maybe that's easier for me to say, but and it's just leaning into that and being like, okay, we see people are searching for certain things. They want specific answers to a specific question. Let's see if we can find that niche content and share it to them, whether it's through a little text box, which I think this is how snippets is going to be done. But they also are going to obviously be sending curated TikTok video recommendations as well. So I think it's really cool. I think it's exciting to see how the future of search is starting to evolve and develop, and it's starting to kind of unfold. And I think other networks are going to start following suit as well. But, I'm going to have to keep testing out searching on TikTok to see kind of what questions can be answered. And maybe we can figure out how marketers can lean into it as well. But hopefully, you want, if you are a marketer, you want your TikTok to be answering the questions that people are searching for. So maybe build my recommendation would just be build content to answer the questions your audience is asking.
Absolutely. And I think for me, what makes this so exciting, especially when we think about sort of TikTok, is a lot of the content there is these fun, engaging, like little videos. And for businesses, they often struggle to think, how do we fit into that equation? Like, what's our strategy for TikTok? And this enables a lot of companies to be able to focus on creating that credible questions and becoming those authorities similar to what they are on Google when it comes to ranking and being able to provide that sort of insights for their audience. So those brands and those businesses that have struggled a little bit to define what that TikTok strategy can look like can choose to lean in a little bit on sort of the authority angle as well too.
Exactly.
Perfect. On to the question of the day here. And I think it ties into some of the great accolades that your team's won here, and being able to just understand a little bit around what led up to being able to get that finalist nomination. Nick, would love to understand a little bit around how you approach crafting this award-winning LinkedIn strategy, what your team did differently this year to help sort of drive that growth that you've been able to achieve this year. Would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so I'm not going to take all the credit for this. That is not my entire, like, I didn't have the entire say on this, so I'm a full credit to the entire team, and everybody had a little bit of input on how to make this LinkedIn strategy kind of what it is. But some of the things that I can share to that I think maybe got the attention of the Shorty Awards for how we got nominated and things like that is we stopped and we took a full kind of analysis of like what's doing really well from our channel versus what do we see is popping up on our feeds the most and performing and getting lots of, like, kind of almost hitting that virality point where we're getting lots of engagement from like other accounts, and just taking notes of like what worked there, what did we see happen, and from everything from like, okay, they didn't use capital letters, right, different, like, or they used double line breaks in between their paragraphs, to they used images, there were no links and whatever, right? We took all of that into consideration. We started to formulate a little bit of a strategy of what worked. What we have found works the best so far from our content and the strategy we've been kind of doing is to be relatable. That's kind of the key word that I think we want to share the most, is we want to be relatable. We also have other content that we share out that is like, here's the things that our employees are doing, and here's our volunteer works and our diversity and inclusion efforts, and also things like that to showcase that Hootsuite is a desirable workplace for people to come work with and work for and partner with and all sorts of things. But we also our main kind of content pillar is being relatable, understanding that what we call universal truths of being a social media manager, and then relaying that back to our audience. So one of the top kind of content pieces we had on the year was taking inspiration from the dude with a sign on Instagram, if everybody's seen that, taking dude with a sign, turning it into owlie with a sign, and then sharing the universal truth of social media manager is not an entry-level job. That's one of the universal truths that we identified and we find is really relatable with our audience, and they understand that, and they kind of want to have us shout that from the rooftops. So we shared that photo, that kind of in the meme style, and it just did so well for us, and we've just been rolling with that kind of content ever since. And we look to just be a little bit more funny and a little bit more kind of lighthearted on LinkedIn as well, where it used to be seen as such a stuffy network, but now you can be fun, you can have a little bit of personality, and we find that, at least with our audience, that is appreciated, and the engagements come from that. People show their appreciation by liking it, sharing it, adding their comments, having some fun with us in the replies. So
yeah, and
that's kind of what we've been going.
I love too, like with the brand voice and how we describe that, how that encapsulates exactly what you were talking about there with that sort of mischievous attitude. Like, how did you come up with, how did your team come up with sort of that tone or brand for LinkedIn? Is there things you tested, or love to understand that process?
Yeah, lots of testing. It works. It started with the brand, the rebrand that we did, where we identified, content guidelines and the brand voice and who is Owly and how do they represent themselves, and what does our audience care about, and what do they expect to hear from Hootsuite, right? And we found that we were an educator. People wanted to be educated by Hootsuite. They want to be they want to learn something from us, and like so we start to share how-tos and things like that. But then we tried to go the extra mile and make it more social first, and that's where memes and taking images from a trending topic like the Super Bowl or the Oscars, and then turning that into social media kind of manager content. Going that extra mile has helped us a lot as well.
And what surprised you most over this past year? I know you mentioned some of that content being able to gain some traction. Is there anything else that really surprised you as you doubled down on LinkedIn this year?
The thing that surprised me, and I think the team the most, has that it's become such a growth channel for us. The engagements are crazy. What we share on Twitter and Instagram and all our other networks, it's usually LinkedIn that performs the best for us. And when it comes to like engagement focused content, so generally posts that don't have a CTA, don't have a link attached to them, those kind of posts that just go out and when we say things like, social media manager is not an entry level job, that post will perform the best out of all the networks on LinkedIn. And we get like our following has been skyrocketing the most on LinkedIn, which I think has been a pleasant surprise. And it's turned into the recommendation from me to any other marketers. Like, you can start focusing on LinkedIn as a network where you can potentially grow your engagements, grow your audience, and connect with people who actually really start to not just learn from the company, but all become like brand advocates for the company.
Yeah. And I think too, one key element to this amazing success over the year has been that amazing work you've been doing on our employee advocacy program here at Hootsuite through Hootsuite Amplify. I know that's a key pillar in terms of our internal strategy, but when you think about sort of the corporate channels versus the employee channels, like how do you plan for that from a strategy perspective? Do you take different tones? Like, we'd love to understand how that all looks.
Yeah, I do. So employee advocacy, the content that I create for our employee advocacy is close. It's adjacent to what we share on our brand channels, but the tone is totally different because I have to be writing content that our employees want to share on their behalf. So I try to make it as first person as possible, saying things like, I'm really excited to share this, or I have to turn it into a LinkedIn post that I want to share, but also that you want to share and that an accountant want to share it onto their channels, right? I obviously recommend that everybody when they share from Amplify, our employee advocacy tool, that they customize it to make it their own voice. But I do my best to make it as close to what I would want everybody to say in the first place, where the brand has its own guidelines and its own voice. And, we go a little bit more third person. We talk as if we, the brand, want to be sharing and things like that. So words matter when you're sharing to social media, and depending on like the tone and the style that you want to be sharing. But yeah, they're aligned, but they're totally separate at the same point.
Yeah. So when you think about companies that may be listening here to our conversation today, and them thinking about how to plan their LinkedIn strategy and what things they can be doing to potentially take that pause, reflect, and make some changes, like, is there anything you would recommend for them to be thinking about, and anything you'd recommend for them to do technically wise?
Yes. So one, look at your analytics, look in the past year or so of posts, and review the top performers. What worked well for you? What was the content type? What was the format? And then what also didn't work well for you? So take the top 20%, focus on that kind of content and build with that. Remove the bottom 20%. You want to be making sure that you are being efficient with your content. So learn from what's working, remove what's not working. And then additionally, look outside of your brand, look to your home feed, and start to figure out what is working with other people, for your competitors, for the influencers and the thought leaders of LinkedIn, right? And then start testing new things and working what you're seeing and bringing that into your content types to experiment, so you can kind of start to do some A/B tests and say, yes, definitively, this is working better than this, whatever that may be, videos or images, GIFs or, carousels or anything like that. Those would be the top two things I would recommend, is start by just reviewing and then focusing on what is working.
Perfect. I think it's great advice and a great way to approach strategy across every channel. wrapping up today. A little bit of a highlight of the week here, Nick. I know you found some interesting posts that stuck out to you this week.
Yeah, I'll be quick on this one because I know we're already at 20 minutes. So the one that I wanted to just give a cool shout out to here. Whoops, let's go to this layout. This is from our Vancouver Public Library. I just thought this was a fun one, mainly because it's another example of like brands going outside of expectations and being social first. And I think it's just a fun thing that they did. You can see it generated a lot of engagements for them. So Vancouver Public Library, they shared a thread of Pedro Pascal as VPL branches. And then here's just examples of some of the ones they had. And I just love it. I thought it was so fun. They found, I don't even know how they found these images and paired them with the branches, but I just thought, kudos to the social media manager that thought this up and did this. It's just, I love it. It's hilarious. It's weird. It's engaging. I shared it as an example of like a public government account doing something fun and social first. And like, it just goes to show that you can share content that is social first and like fits your network. Okay, so find content that fits your network and really just lean into that. This wouldn't necessarily fit on LinkedIn, but maybe it would, but not as a thread. You'd have to do it as a carousel, but that's how you show that it would be network first and you speak to it in that sense. So I just love that they did this. It's unexpected. It's leaning into trends and seeing that the trending topic of Pedro Pascal. He's so hot right now. And they've got The Last of Us just came out, right? Or just wrapped up for the season. So everybody's talking about it. And then they found this just like weird, funny thing that they could do. And it worked. It drove engagement and people are talking about it. It makes me want to go in and, I want to talk to this social media manager, but I also want to go and visit the libraries and see if I can, maybe there's some zombie books I could go and take out from there now.
Absolutely. And I love too how like relatable it is with both of us being in Vancouver here. Can see my branch there and see which photo matches up, but it's a very fun, creative way to be able to tackle that. I think too, you had one person you wanted to shout out as well too, just to wrap up the show, Nick.
Yeah, so everybody here is on LinkedIn. Hopefully we got a lot of social media marketers following us and watching along. I just wanted to give a shout out here to, you got it? Yeah. This is John Steven Stansel. If you are not following him and you're a social media marketer, you are missing out. I just want you to go in, make sure you go to his account. You can see it here. Type in his name. He shares lots of really insightful tips on being a social media manager. He shares relatable content, which is something that Hootsuite tries to do, but he does a fantastic job and he's got a new post pretty much every day. I really appreciate the content that he shares. And if you have the time, go give him a follow if you're not already, because he is awesome. And I just wanted to make sure that I give that shout out because he is great. And I like to think I'm an expert at social media marketing, but he's someone that influences me. And I consider him somebody that is an excellent follow. So please go give him a follow.
Yeah, I love that. I think my favorite community that I've come to discover on social media is the social media manager community, a place of very fun memes and laughs, as well as great insights and advice, and a very strong community of people supporting each other, of strangers who haven't met but are connected through this thread. So love to see that highlight, and many more people I'm sure will highlight in future shows.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Nick, for your time today, and thanks everyone for listening. We're looking forward to future episodes and hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Have a good one.